Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Monday, January the 8th, 2018. Happy Monday, everybody. 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We're off to a good start with your daily dose of happy, twice daily, Monday through Friday. And Tom, I know that I had a really bitterly cold weekend. I get the impression from what we talked about beforehand, yours is not quite as cold.
No, it hasn't been very cold at all. Everyone's out walking in the sun. Many days we're in the 50s, and I think we're going to hit 60 this next week. Very unusual winter in Colorado, at least where I live.
Wow, I mean that's just like almost unheard of. But hey, take advantage of the warm weather while you got it. That's the nice part.
Yeah, everyone's out there and passing each other on the path, going, "Isn't this nice?" And I go, "I sure would like to see some snow."
Oh, okay, a little snow activity wanted. All right. Well,
I just like to see that moisture coming in.
I suspect you'll get your wish sooner rather than later, but enjoy the warmth while you got it. It's nice to have.
Enjoying it. I'm enjoying it every day.
Yeah.
I love going out for walks.
Oh yeah, I miss that actually. In fact, I'm glad our cold snap has been just reaching the lowest point, and now it's expected to go back up to the warmer temperatures, and I can hardly wait because I got to get out. I mean, Tom, I've got like cabin fever. I got to get out.
Yeah, you got to move that body.
Oh boy, my whole body screams, I miss it, I miss it, I miss it.
I'm the same way.
So,
really
did you have a good weekend? Any good stuff happening?
Yeah, I had a great experience last night. I got together with my family. We do an after Christmas get together because it's such a big family. Like 40 family members live here in Denver, Colorado. And,
wow.
So they all get together with their individual families. And so after Christmas, the siblings who are now we're the like patriarchs and matriarchs of the family, we get together just amongst ourselves. And a few of the kids show up. And it was just a fantastic experience of my being in my path of least resistance, my place of most allowing last night. It felt just so good to be with all these people and just to be taking the lid off of every conversation. It just was so high energy. The love and the joy amongst everybody was just really clicking. And to me, it doesn't get much better than that. I just love to be in these big family get-togethers. I've had it my whole life, and it's just really
wow.
Good.
I mean, there are people who give their left eye teeth for that kind of family experience, to be able to not only get the family together, but have it be a good one where you're in the path of least resistance. That's big stuff. That's really good. I mean, congratulations for having that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I really feel fortunate.
I mean,
been that way since I was a little kid.
What's your secret? Because I mean, that's the topic today: path of least resistance. So, what's your secret?
Well, for me, my secret is that I'm continuing to notice what really feels the best to me inside, and I follow that, and I quit listening to any thoughts as much as I can that put me in comparison to others or where I've got my nose on their path, and I just notice, like, what is it that I came here to manifest, and I show up with that energy and those thoughts, so that I'm really true to what my joy is, what my agenda of joy.
Okay.
And as I express that to different people, then it turns into these really interesting conversations because I'm not trying to please anybody. I'm basically just willing to like put it all out there, and they all know that I'm the unusual one in the family in a sense that that I do that.
Tom's the one who's
family members don't do that.
He's the one in the far off reaches of reality. Yeah, okay, that's Tom. Okay,
right. Like, okay, Tom. But if people like it and they like me, and it makes some really interesting conversations.
That's true.
Start talking about quantum physics. Like, what are we really? What are we doing here? Where do we come from? In the sense of wanting to know how to live the most fulfilling life possible, and that's really what the path of least resistance is. It's really interesting because I was reading up about it, and it's the way it's explained is like it's the thing we decided before we came in these bodies, that we have a certain momentum that is unique to each one of us, and that is our unique path. And so it isn't just that in a given day you look for what feels the easiest or what feels the most flowing, even though that is, he is a huge amount of what it is. But it's also the fact that there is this momentum that was already established before we came into our bodies that we know we're trying to follow. You know, this feeling of ease and trust and excitement and passion and fulfillment. And when you get tuned into that, and there's not a wobble between trying to please other people or comparing ourselves to what, say, the society says a good life should look like, but we're following what we feel in our guts, in our heart, feels good to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's sort of like, you know, what's your unique signature, you know?
Yeah.
And when you bring that alive, you fly in the face of convention, and you fly in the face of other people's expectations. Just talking to these young kids last night and seeing how much they're programmed by the parents, you know, these different kids in the family, to do what will make them money, you know, and what will set them up in society to be one of the functional cogs in the machine,
mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's all based on wanting to have security, which is fine. But sometimes the different careers and things they're aspiring to, because a lot of the kids are in college, you get the sense that they're not doing this because they're following the path of most excitement and fulfillment for them. They're doing it because it'll pay the bills and it'll please mom and dad.
Oh, sure.
And all that. And so I try to shake things up by talking to them about who are you really, you know, and what would it be like if you weren't just following convention, you know.
Certainly for myself. I mean, growing up, I was completely and totally successfully brainwashed into the idea that success is all about putting your nose to the grindstone. It was all about doing the hard work. It was all about, you know, doing the work because you need to feed your family, and not trying to pursue something that you love, not trying to pursue something that really jazzed you, but just going where the money was. And just going where, you know, the success is and so forth. The whole definition of success was based on whether or not your family was fed, and had nothing to do with whether or not the life work was fulfilling. And
mm-hmm.
boy, did I feel cheated after about 30 years of that. I mean, because first of all, the whole work ethic thing, it's about working hard. It's about putting your nose to the grindstone. It's about, you know, showing up every day and doing all the work and so forth. And that's going to produce success. I can tell you with 100% assurance, it is absolute, total rubbish, because it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it really did, I should be a multimillionaire today, but I'm not, because I followed a formula that was completely flawed. It was the formula that I was taught, but it's the formula that I followed, and it just doesn't work. And it took me a long time to even come to grips with how the heck did it happen. You know, because was I really like this stupid person? No, actually, I had great grades in school. You know, so it couldn't be that. Mm-hmm. You know, was it that I just, you know, I wasn't applying the formula correctly? Well, no, actually, part of the formula that they're often talking about is how you want to go into business for yourself. Well, I did. I went into business for myself, and I actually succeeded for a while, but I didn't stay there, and fell off. And I actually got to the point where I was flailing, trying just to survive after like about 15 years of it. Well, that's supposed to not happen if you follow the traditional formula. And yet it did happen.
Right.
So, therefore, I had to conclude the formula was full of it. And I didn't know what the right formula was at that point. I hadn't discovered law of attraction really until about 10 years ago, and even then I still didn't understand how to apply it. But I'm not sure I even believed it, to be perfectly honest. It was attractive to me. It was interesting to me. It felt right, but I still didn't really believe it. And it's been a long road since then. But I now understand that the formula I was taught just doesn't work. So, you know, it's really important to find what your life's work is. I mean, I found it finally. I mean, it hasn't put income in my pocket yet, but I know it's going to. It's just a matter of time. And the thing that I love to do is this podcast. I love this. This is so much fun. I mean, I get so jazzed by doing this. It's bound to lead to something good. It's got to, because it feels so good. I understand that now. But what a path I've had to go through to get there, you know?
so now you're noticing this is more your path of least resistance. This is
Yeah, and I wish I had known that concept.
That sense.
If I had known that concept, 30, 40 years ago, that would have made a huge difference in my life. So, I mean, I don't know that your nieces and nephews really wanted to hear the concept, but I'm glad they at least heard it, because that gave them a different viewpoint, and a viewpoint that they really needed.
By the end of the evening, we had on LOA Today listening to our last podcast.
Oh, really?
All 15 of us, yeah.
Oh,
we
that's
didn't
funny.
listen to the whole thing, but they all wanted to hear Uncle Tom, do his thing on the radio, kind of vibe. It's like, and everybody was cracking up. Oh my God, listen to him. And we didn't get to any content, but it was funny. It was you and me talking about the weather again in the last podcast.
It's probably not
great, because that's how much influence, that my big mouth had, I guess, on the evening.
Probably weather was not the best, the most ideal topic to introduce them with, but, well, at least they listened, so that's the good part.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they all said they're going to listen. In fact, the kids said, we're going to listen to this as we drive home tonight.
Oh, great.
Have this on in the car. We'll see. But, the thing that you're talking about is so key, I think, to how come we don't follow our path of least resistance is that the way that Abraham describes it is it's sort of the analogy they give if you're standing on a hill in San Francisco and your car is at the very top of the hill, sort of on a rounded portion, and you can push the car like 6 inches towards the downhill direction, and it'll roll those 6 inches, and you can get around in the front of the car and stop it with your leg. But if you roll it very far, much further, you go a foot or you go 3 feet, it could start a momentum that you'll never get in front of that car again, and it'll end up in the bay,
Pretty much.
And they said that's what momentum away from our path of least resistance is like, because it starts like in school, or it starts, the way we grow up learning to compare ourselves to others and learning to put our focus on other people's paths. So we're watching what other people are doing, and we're comparing ourselves, and we're not really aware that we're not listening to our own unique guidance, right? And so then we end up, like you said, you follow the conventional agreed upon wisdom about what should make a successful life, and you end up not happy, and you end up not fulfilled in some cases. And
even more than that, by the way,
longing inside. Even if you make a couple $1 million, you could still have this longing inside where you still don't feel like you're in sync with your own personal trajectory, because that trajectory was established before we came into these bodies, and it's this beautiful resistance-free path of flowing with manifesting our unique gifts, our unique talents, our unique genius, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what now we're trying to get back, because we're it's like once the momentum has been established of that car going down the hill, which is like a lifetime focused on pleasing others, a lifetime focused on doing what other people around us are doing, what we've been told is the way to have happiness, but it doesn't necessarily bring us. You go to this church and you practice this religion and you get this kind of job and you live in this kind of house and you have a family and and that all this stuff should make you happy, but it doesn't necessarily bring that fulfillment.
That's true. And even if you do, even if you are exposed at some point during your life, which I was eventually, to the idea of the path of least resistance, I found that if it comes so late and the momentum is going so badly in the wrong direction, it can actually be hard to know what your passion is. That's what happened to me. I really, for the longest time, I did not know what my passion was. I didn't even know how to begin to answer the question. That's how bad it got. I didn't know how to even figure out what my passion would be. I mean, if you asked me that question then, and I asked myself that question, my wife asked me that question, I would sit there with a blank look on my face because I didn't know. I was so disconnected from what was going on inside me and what I needed to do with my life and so forth that I couldn't answer the question. And that was like...
that's really common.
Oh, I think it's more common than people want to recognize. And it's to me, it is the greatest indictment of the traditional approach that I mean, and you can see it. You can see it in kids coming out of school, for goodness sake. I remember it from coming out of school. When I graduated from high school, I had a pretty good sized high school class, probably about 560 students, something like that. And if I had taken a survey of those 500 odd students and asked them, so now that you're graduated from high school, do you know what you want to do with your life? Well, if I'd asked them what they're going to do next, they could have told me that, because probably about 60% of them were going to college, and another 10% were going to go work in a auto shop and stuff like that. They could have told me that kind of thing. But if I had asked them, what do you want to do with your life? What's the big passion of your life? I doubt that 20% could have told me. And that's an indictment. That's an indictment of just what they're taught, what we are taught. We're taught the wrong stuff. We're taught we're not taught how to have successful, happy, joyful, fulfilled lives. We're taught to follow a model that doesn't work. Well, so this is really an important topic. This whole idea of your path of least resistance and what really jazzes you and what vibrates you, what makes you really tick. Because that's the one question we all need to answer for ourselves, and it's not something we can really get from somebody else. You know that? You know what I mean? You can't say, no, so what's my path? What and people try to. People try. I mean, where do they go first? They go to their religion, right? They go to their religions and ask, so I'm lost. What do I do with my life? And the religion gives you the religion answers, and you still don't know what you're going to do with your life.
Well, yeah. I've been doing that even though I followed a path that was completely untraditional, working for a teacher from India for 10 years and living in ashrams all over the country from age 23 to 33, I was really in a completely different trajectory. But I was still looking outside myself, like looking to this teacher from India. And then when that ended in 1983, I started then, looking into self-help books and all these different other self-help teachers that are out there, of which there's endless amount of books. And so I was always looking outside myself for somebody to give me the insight into who I was. And even though I did these incredible exercises that I used this book called What Color is Your Parachute? And it had this.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And so it's a book to help you find out what's your unique gifts and what's your unique genius. And it had this book that went along with it called Where Do I Go With My Life From Here by John Crystal. And that book was this huge amount of exercises. I mean, I filled up reams of paper to try to understand what were my unique gifts when I was a kid, because I figured if I saw how I acted when I was a kid, then those would be the things that I should follow in my career choice. Because I figured, I was like 33, 34, I was saying, okay, now I've got to really buckle down into a career because I've run nonprofit organization for 10 years, but what is it I really want to do? And it turned out when I did all those exercises that I really wanted to be a psychotherapist. It looked like I wanted to coach people. That's what it came up.
Okay.
And but then I started to go to school to get trained to that, and it just didn't turn me on. So I backed away from that and then ended up getting, offered a gig with my own company, which then I did for the next 27 years in the college textbook industry, going door to door on college campuses, but only working 100 days a year. So I, in a sense, I did create a lot of personal freedom because I had 265 days off every year. And then I was able to notice my path of least resistance because when you're off every day, for over 200 days a year, you get a sense of like what it feels like just to be me. But it was amazing, even though I had that I didn't still know. I just kept doing exercises and reading, trying to figure out, well, what should I be when I grow up? And I remember when I was turning 60, I was still saying that tongue-in-cheek to friends. I was saying, I'm still trying to figure out what I'll be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Because even though I did that great job, it wasn't my passion, to buy and sell college textbooks. Mm-hmm. That was just a way to make some really good money and only have to work 100 days a year so I could then go mountain biking and go river rafting and go hiking and raise a family. Mm-hmm. I took on, a step family. I raised 3 kids from the time they were really little during that time period. But really my passion of who I am uniquely, who I decided to be before I came in this body, and what the path that I laid out for myself to really have this incredibly expansive outrageous experience of life, I'm still coming back to it. And I'm in my late 60s. I'm still coming back every day more to this path of least resistance. What really feels good to me? And that's what I was asking myself last night at this gathering with all the family. Just every conversation, each person I talk to, I'm sort of feeling inside, what do I really want to talk about? And I wanted to listen to them too. It's sort of, I wanted to have a good conversation. Mm-hmm. But I'm constantly doing that with myself all day long. What's a good conversation with myself as far as what's fun, what feels good? And Abraham says, you've got to be connecting. You've got to get tuned in, turned on. You've got to meditate. You've got to find out what it is to really just choose feeling good, and that you've got to get to the point where you know that all is well before you can start noticing that your source self is giving you impulses all day long. It's telling you, your higher self is telling you, okay, this feels better than that. So you're making decisions like, okay, I'd rather go in that direction than that direction. I'd rather choose to, right now go for a walk, or I'd rather right now choose to play my guitar. I'd rather right now choose to call up so-and-so, or I'm going to work on this blog, or I'm going to have this coaching session. I'm feeling out all day long what feels best.
That's a key thing. That idea.
What's that?
That idea of making decisions. That's a key point, and I don't want to skip past it too quickly, because the whole idea of decisions was a huge part of what I was messed up about, because I was certainly able to decide what I liked and what I didn't like. What took me the longest time to realize is that when there was stuff that I didn't like, I wasn't putting it behind me. You know what I mean? I was continuing to embrace it. I figured, well, I could fix this. I could solve this. In fact, I became a problem solver as a life pursuit, not because I loved it, just because that's the pattern I ended up developing. And I kept coming up with solutions. Well, we can solve this. We can solve this. Society can solve this. We can get together. We can do all this. All these great things can happen. And then they never happened. And over time, I began to realize I can keep coming up with solutions until the cows come home. But if I'm asking somebody else to do those solutions for me, that's not going to work. And if I'm expecting for the problem to be solved before I can feel good, that's not going to work. And all I'm really doing with a lot of these is just setting myself up for failure. At some point, I had to face myself in the mirror and say, well, you got to stop paying attention to that stuff that you have no control over. Control the stuff in your own life and leave that other stuff behind. For me, it was mostly politics. And you can't solve politics. And I should know that. I was a political science major. I had a degree in the darn thing, and I still was trying to solve the darn thing. It was crazy. But you have to leave that stuff behind. You got to leave it behind. Otherwise, you can never get to the point where you know, well, what is it that I like? What is it that I care about? What is it that I'm passionate about? Because you're so focused on all the old stuff.
Right. And we talked, our last podcast was about aging, and it's, Abraham talks about how the thing that ages you more than anything is when you're trying to be the path of least resistance for somebody else. Your focus is so much on solving other people's problems, solving the world's problems, that you don't really notice what your joy is. You don't notice what your own path of least resistance is. You're trying to be the path of least resistance for somebody else, but if you really put the mirror up to your own life, you'll find, are you truly in love with your life? Is it awesome for you to be here on this planet? Because if it isn't, can you truly help somebody else? Because just because we come up with solutions to external problems, the funny thing is that everything seems to revolve around joy. It's like the default state of everything seems to be a sense of ease and flow. It's the way that life works. There's this great quote I saw about the path of least resistance where they're saying everything in the universe works via the path of least resistance. And I started to think of trees growing and rivers flowing and rain falling and cells dividing. Everything is following this path of least resistance as it unfolds. It's like expansion is this least resistance taking place, rather than, even though resistance is important, like there there, in a sense, no pain, no gain. There is some truth to the fact that contrast, obviously, when we know what we don't want, we know what we do want. Or we come up against adversity and we learn things, and then we learn a different path. Like the river comes up against the rock, and it learns how to flow around the rock. It might take a while, but when you watch water, that's coming down and it's a stream of water, you watch how it takes its time to find the path of least resistance, but eventually it finds the path, and that becomes the course of the water. Then it really starts to flow, and it digs a groove into that path of least resistance.
Right,
and we come on this planet with a path of least resistance that we have outlined before we came here. That's the amazing thing, that we've figured this, we know what this is before we came here, and then we get introduced to all this wobble, all this confusion by other people's messages telling us that, you can't follow your own path. You've got to do what your parents and teachers and the society is setting up for you to do.
And setting up, that's the operative word, because you've been set up, and we've all been set up. And
Yeah.
at some point we have to recognize that we were set up and say, enough, I'm done with that path. Let's go back to finding what like you say, my path of least resistance is. Let's go back to the beginning here and say, well, okay, where does it work for me? Because all right, now I know all this stuff that doesn't work, and I know it really well. I am an expert at that stuff, but it's not working. So, okay, I'm going to put all that aside. Let's go back to looking at what does work for me. And I like what you were pointing out about how in nature there is no resistance. For instance, I'm thinking about animations I've seen, where they do the stop photography kind of thing, and so you can see over the course of time a plant growing. And as you see the plant growing, it kind of waves around as it's looking for the sun and so forth. But it's not straining to grow. It's not like, oh God, I gotta get up here. It's just growing.
Yeah.
It just grows because that's what it does. And like you said, same thing with water. It's not like the water strains to get to wherever it needs to get to. So clearly
there does have to be resistance, though. It seems like. Like they say, a butterfly, when it's coming out of the chrysalis, that they've done experiments where they've helped the butterfly come out because it looks like it's struggling so much, and then those butterflies never develop and they can't fly and they die.
That's true. Yeah, they need to strengthen their wings.
They have to develop everything by the pressure of getting out of that shell, and in a way we create this contrast here. But then right now, in a way, in your life and me in my life, I'm cracking the shell that I spent, my whole lifetime developing. This belief that I'm limited, this belief that I'm not an infinite being, the belief that you can only get so much out of life. I noticed that with all my relatives last night. I swear, every one of those people, in my mind, they believe that life it only gets so good. And they're open, and I am too, but we all have this belief of this limitation, right?
Yeah, the concept of resistance
we're breaking out of that.
That concept of resistance is interesting because you're right. I'm not sure I'd call it resistance. I think I'd call it growth, which is not necessarily the same thing. Resistance, in my view, is where something inside of you is preventing you from pursuing the path you want to pursue, meaning that you are blocking yourself. Whereas the butterfly trying to break itself out of the cocoon, it isn't something inside the butterfly that's blocking it. It's just there's an obstacle in the way. It needs to push the obstacle out of the way. But the resistances, that, as I understand it, are resistances inside ourselves, where we've basically set ourselves up. So on the one hand, we want to have X happen. On the other hand, we resist X happening. And to me, that's a different kind of resistance. That's the real kind of resistance that we're trying to overcome. But you're right. You don't want to stop a being from beating their wings against the cocoon to break out. In fact, that was one of the worst things that I was doing back when I was trying to do the political stuff. I was trying to take away from people the very thing they need the most, and that is to make their own way. I was trying to make their way for them. which is really not a very friendly thing to do. I thought it was. I thought I was doing a good thing. I thought that my motives were pure. I thought that I was, trying to really help people. And it didn't occur to me that I was actually hindering them. I was actually trying to get in their way. It never occurred to me that that could possibly be the case. And when I came to the conclusion that I was horrified. Like, oh my God, what have I been doing? I thought I was helping people and I'm doing this. When I finally got that, it was a wake-up call, let me tell you. It was a wake-up call. I was like, oh, well, I got to change my MO here somehow because this is not good. The fact is we do need to leave people to do their own thing, to pursue their own path, and encourage them to pursue their own path. Just do it their way. You got to do it the way that fits you best. And if that means beating your wings on the cocoon to get out, then by God, you beat your wings on the cocoon to get out. But you got to do it. You got to do it your way. I can't fix it for you. And I've been spending the last few years not just trying to improve my own understanding of the law of attraction or trying to improve my own ability to pick my path of least resistance. Up great deal of success, I might add, I've been trying to take my hands off of everybody else's problems and just say, look, it's not up to me to solve your problem. You want to ask me a question, I'll answer your question. You ask me for advice, I'll give you some advice. But this is your life. It's not my life. And I am not going to be the one to tell you that it's up to me to solve your problem. I've done that for too long. I'm done with it. Goodbye.
Yeah. I realize when I'm coaching people that I'm probably not of much help to anybody unless I'm aligned with my path of least resistance.
Oh, yeah. That's essential.
Abraham always says, get aligned first and then go shopping. Get aligned first and then pull out into traffic. Get aligned first and then do a coaching session. It's like get aligned first and then do a podcast. Don't do these things from a place where you're feeling out of sorts within yourself, or you're not really in touch with the fact of that stillness within, or that place within where you can say, no, I feel like I'm congruent with who I am.
And it makes sense because if you're not feeling good, how can you help somebody else to feel good? You just can't.
Exactly.
There's no way to do that.
No, you can't. And you have to be authentically connected and not, just like winging it, there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of momentum that can come about because this is our natural default state. That's the nice thing about it, is that even though we've created so much wobble, so much momentum in directions that don't really serve us by the way we've grown up and the belief systems that we've developed, those thoughts and beliefs, but in any given moment, we always have the potential, every single moment. That's why I like to say, every second's a second chance. You always have unlimited possibilities are really at our fingertips every second. If we really understand that, believe that, and surrender to that, let go to the fact that there's a lot of potential, but to recognize when I'm truly happy and not be playing myself, like confusing my own self by not recognizing that I haven't taken the time to meditate. I haven't taken the time to slow down inside and really listen within for the impulses that are coming to me from my higher self. That's the part that to me is just this all day long. I'm listening for, am I really responding to what really feels good to me? Or am I doing what's on my list of things to do because it's on my list of things to do?
This whole idea, too, of responding to the higher self or the inner being, I think of it as the inner being, the inner side of me, so to speak, or the larger side of me, so to speak. I have for the longest time wondered why I wasn't getting any signals. Why wasn't I hearing anything? Why wasn't anything coming through? And to this day, I still experience that feeling quite often. Just yesterday, I read something. It was an Abraham thing, and it really kind of woke me up because actually it was a tape I was hearing. Abraham was saying, well, and I'm going to misquote this. I know I am, but I'm going to try it anyway. I won't even try to get their wording. I'll just do it my way. Essentially, they're saying if you are if you're trying to, boy, I just lost the thought. Isn't that awful when that happens? I mean, literally, the thought just disappeared in my head. It just disintegrated into 1,000 pieces, and now I can't get it back.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good grief.
It's okay. It's okay. You know, the thing is that what do you do when you know that your momentum is not the momentum of your path of least resistance? You've got just a lot of momentum that's keeping you all twirled up, all caught up in your belief systems, and you know, we're not feeling that joy, that flow that comes from knowing that we're following our unique path. You know, it's because when you're on your path, it feels so good, and that's how you know you're following your path of least resistance. That's why if you took a day and you dedicated that entire day to only doing what's the next best feeling thing, like say you took a Sunday, some day that you could afford to do it, and really, I mean, I like to afford every day to do it, but somebody could like look and say, okay, today from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep, I'm going to just do stuff. What's the next best feeling thing that occurs to me this day? I'll make no other plans, or maybe something will come along and you'll say, yeah, I'll do that at 6 o'clock. I'll go out and have dinner with my friend. But you know, you follow. What does this feel good? Does this really feel good to me? Is this what I really want to do, or am I doing this because I think I should? You know, for some should.
And by the way,
I better do.
I remembered what the thought
What's
was.
that?
When you said it was about feeling good, that's when I remembered what the thought was. You kind of reminded me with that, so thank you. The thought that Abraham was trying to suggest is we actually do have, all of us, a direct connection to our inner being, to our higher self. And it's one we don't think about. It's one we don't realize is there. And that is our ability to feel emotions. And when they said that, that was the first time it ever occurred to me that my emotions were a message from my inner being. I've never thought of it that way. I mean, it's true, it must be, because every other thing I've ever understood about it certainly points in that direction, but somehow I never made the connection until yesterday. And when I made that connection, I realized, well, that's kind of like, I mean, that's the emotions are kind of a way of my inner being saying yes or no. Yes, it feels good. Yeah. Here's the good feeling. No, it doesn't feel good. Here's the bad feeling. And I realized, if I got that message, you know what? That means it is possible for me to at least start a dialogue. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but I can now conceive of the possibility of it. So now I can see myself actually being able to not only receive messages, but send messages. It's possible now. Do I know how to do it? No, not a clue yet. But at least the possibility exists that didn't exist in my mind before. So that, for me, that was a big breakthrough yesterday.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I remember when I went through the breakthrough, because they kept saying that your emotions are your internal guidance system, and that when you wake up and you feel fear, let's say, and you don't feel like everything's so great, and you feel like you're threatened by something, you feel insecure, that feeling is telling you that your source self, your higher self, your inner being knows something different about the situation you're worried about than you do.
Yeah.
And so I look at, well, what's causing the worry? Well, the worry is a fear around money, let's say. And then I go, well, okay, so my inner being knows something I don't know. Well, what? You know, and then I go, what is it that I'm not getting here that causes me to feel worried? And the worry is to tell me that my inner being is thinking a different thought. And then I go, well, obviously my inner being's probably thinking that abundance is already the way the universe is designed, that you've completely got your back covered by your higher self. Everything's going to be fine. Everything always works out. Abundance is rampant. Therefore, you have infinite possibilities today. Therefore, money could come in all kinds of different ways. Therefore, relax and flow with your life. It's the only way the abundance that you want is going to come. So relax. And so I would start asking myself, I was driving to this family get-together last night, and I was feeling really good about going down there and looking forward to it. And all of a sudden I get this feeling of fear inside me. And so I wanted to just dismiss it, because I'd been having all these great thoughts about going to see all my family and having these good conversations that we always have. And all of a sudden I felt fear, and I said, okay, that's my internal guidance system telling me something. And I say, what's it trying to tell me? And then I realized it was trying to tell me to take it up a notch in what I believed was possible for the evening I was going to spend with my family. So in other words, it was saying, have even more relaxation and more self-confidence and more trust that if you express yourself fully with these people, you have nothing to lose. There's nothing to be afraid of. It was something like that. I can't remember the exact message, but I really got, when I just looked at the emotion as informing me about something, and that whole fear just transformed immediately into just an increased level of joy and ease about going to see the family. But it took it up a notch. And I believe when I walked into that family get-together, I was elevated even more by that experience of my inner being telling me, you can go further here. There's something higher on your path of least resistance. There's a way for you to be in this evening that's going to be even more fun for you. So go for that.
No,
and that's what I did.
Like I said, I'm still in the process of being able to actually communicate with my inner being. The discovery that I can do it, that I am doing it through emotions, and that my emotions are actually a message from my inner being, that was a breakthrough for me. But I still don't have, I can't honestly say that most of the time I can contact my inner being, ask something, get an answer back, and act on it. That's not normal for me. That's not my usual behavior pattern. It's not my usual experience. So I got to ask you, when you get a message from your inner being, what's it like? How does the message seem? How does it seem to come through? What are you seeing? Images? Are you getting thoughts? I mean, is it sound? How does it manifest? How does it appear?
Well, I love the word they use is impulses.
Okay.
Like you'll get. Well, I mean, to me, it can be as simple as I'm sitting in the chair and I get an impulse to go to the kitchen instead of to immediately, say, keep pressing with the thing I'm working on. Maybe I'm working on something and I'm writing and I'll get a little bit of a feeling like this doesn't feel so good right at this moment. I'm not real excited about it. I'm starting to feel like I'm trying, and then I'll just relax a little bit and I'll get this impulse that'll say, get up and go do those exercises you were going to do. You didn't do your exercises this morning. And I go do my exercises, and I let that be my flow for a while. And then I'm feeling the impulse. Do I feel the impulse to go right yet? No. So what is the impulse saying? Oh, I notice. It's the fact that the sun's coming out. It was behind the clouds, and now the sun's out. Oh, I think I'm getting the impulse. I really want to get outside. So then, I'll get dressed to go out for a walk. I'll go out for a walk for an hour. I'll come back and I'll feel to listen to some music. And then, I'll say, now I'm really ready to write. Now I'm really ready to work on my blog. And then I'll do that. And so that the impulses are coming based on my following what feels good to me, what feels good to me, what feels good to me, what feels good to me. And I make the dedication every day that my dedication for today is to follow what feels good throughout this entire day. I want to feel good, so I'm going to choose to do that, and I'm going to try to notice all day long. Am I pushing to get things done? Am I flowing with what life is offering me? So that's how I'm learning it. Yep. And I'm just like you. I'm in the process of learning to listen to what those impulses are. Yeah, they say they come mainly like if you do meditation and you get to the point where you still your mind, or you've just woken up in the morning, that's when you most can notice the impulses from source. I noticed that when I woke up yesterday, I had been in a place the whole night long of no problems, no worries, and no physical symptoms of discomfort. And when I wake up, there's this period of a few seconds, sometimes a few minutes, where I haven't picked up any problems from the day before. And that's when you can receive impulses, the same as when you're meditating and you get to that place where you still your mind, the impulses start to come. Today I really want to work on that. That feels really good. You get some creative impulse comes.
I wish I could say that the impulses come most often when I'm waking up, but I can't say I get that. But what I can say is I do get impulses. And as you said that started to pull the concept together for me a little bit more. The whole idea that it's not just the emotions I'm getting. The impulses, they're probably coming from my inner being too. Okay, so now I'm beginning to understand. I have at least two tools, two communication methods, two modalities for communicating with my inner being. And I do get the impulses. And you're right, for the longest time I didn't act on them. And that since I have been trying to act on them more often in my most recent years, I've gotten better results. I've enjoyed days better. I have had more joy. I've had more happiness. I've had a better time, so to speak. So that certainly makes sense. I can't say I've totally got it down yet about the whole going with the impulse thing, but you're right.
No,
it makes sense.
You're learning.
Yes.
Joseph Campbell called it following your bliss, and he said if you follow your bliss, that you will have the life that you're meant to live. But it's such an interesting thing to ask myself to follow my bliss. What? So if I just really keep following what feels good, what feels good, what feels good, what feels good, what turns me on, what's exciting, what's fun, that I will end up fulfilling my life's purpose? Yeah, that's how you'll fulfill your life's purpose. Well, will I make money? Well, yeah, probably, but you got to trust that too, like the money's going to come, everything's going to come because you follow your life's purpose, you follow your bliss. And I find that for me, it's like trying to pry my grip off this, holding on to this fear of not being secure if I follow my joy. How will I know I'm going to have money? How will I know that I'm going to have the relationships I want? Well, because you're following. If it feels good to have money, you're going to go do that because that feels good. You want to have a nice lifestyle? You'll find a way to have money, but you can also find a way to have money doing what you love. And that I think is where we're headed as a humanity. Is like more and more and more of us are choosing, I'm going to follow my bliss. I'm going to follow what feels good to me. And I'm going to create a business out of that. I'm going to create my income out of that. I'm going to, Abraham said there's nothing more awesome than to have your income come from what you completely love doing,
It's interesting to me that this whole idea of follow your bliss is tied to impulse. Again, a connection I had not made. I'd certainly heard follow your bliss. I mean, you can't listen to Abraham or even The Secret or any of the stuff that's out there without having heard follow your bliss. But for me, I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew, well, you're kind of supposed to do what makes you feel good. It never occurred to me that meant moment by moment. It never occurred to me that meant, well, I mean, it did. I'm stretching the truth a little bit. But just now you kind of tied it together in a way that said to me, oh, it's follow the impulses. Following your bliss is following the impulses, especially if they're the good feeling impulses. If they're the bad feeling impulses, stay away from those. But if it's the good feeling impulses, follow that because that's following your bliss. And, new connection. Got it. That was good. I like that.
Follow your intuition is another way people put it. And I always was asking, what's intuition? What the heck is intuition? How come so many women I know, they seem to get it. They seem to understand what intuition is. And there's so many women I know who are psychic. They get these intuitions constantly, and they're brilliant. They're so brilliant when they express them. They like, oh, wow. So that's women's intuition, and I'm feeling like as a man, I've got to overcome a lot more conditioning that tells me you just got to play by the rule book. Play by the rule book, buddy. Do it the way we're all doing it, and you've got to take care of the village. You got to protect everybody. You got to be the breadwinner. But really, if you follow your impulses, you follow what your intuition's telling you. It's your gut. Your gut is saying, you know what? I don't want to go out right now. I want to stay in the house. Or you know what? I don't want to eat right now. I'm going to eat when I'm hungry. Or I don't want to get out of bed right now. I want to sleep a little longer, even though my work ethic said, dude, you can't lay in bed. It's 9:00. You got to be up, and your intuition saying, just lay here, just relax, chill.
Yeah, because let's be honest. I mean, we men, everybody gets conditioning for sure, both men and women, but we men get a peculiarly awful form of conditioning. Like you said, you got to protect the village. This whole idea that it's the men who have to go out and do the work and do the stuff and make sure that the food is on the table and the roof is over the head. It's the man's responsibility, and that means you put your nose to the grindstone and all the rest of the stuff that goes along with it. We get that from the moment that we're conscious. That's a lot to overcome. So that's part of what we're trying to overcome.
It's part of what?
It's part of what we're trying to overcome even now. It's what we're trying to put aside and replace with this new concept of following the bliss.
And this is where a really important thing comes in for all of us, but for men I know especially, is that we've learned to numb our feelings. So we've learned to numb our impulses and our intuitive hunches, because you're supposed to always just deal with the pain and put up with the pain. And men traditionally for centuries have been honored by the degree to which they can tolerate pain.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're tolerating the pain of not doing what you love, tolerating the pain of not being as happy as you could be, then you just you shrug it off. Of course I'm not as happy as I could be, but so what? It's like, that's pretty feminine to just be happy all the time. I'm a man, I put up with the tough stuff, I grin and bear it, I get through it, I push through pain, and all of that numbs our feelings to our intuitive impulses that are suggesting a path that could be so different for us, could be so illuminating, because we got to then marry with our feminine side, our more sensitive side, in order to hear the impulses. We got to relax and listen, and notice what feels good, what feels good, what feels good.
Absolutely. And it's not as if no male has ever succeeded by shutting off the feelings, by, becoming super aggressive and going out there and just tearing up the marketplace. There are plenty of examples of men who have done that. The only thing I would question are their lives really happy? Do they really feel the joy of their success? Because I don't think they do. I could be wrong. I'm not the kind of person anyway. I don't really like that kind of approach. But I don't really think that they do enjoy their lives. I don't think they really feel happy. In fact,
it's very individual.
It is. It's true. It's individual. But maybe I'm overgeneralizing too much. Maybe I'm putting too much of a blanket over the whole thing. But I just keep thinking about the way the traditional method is laid out, the idea of you achieve success and you will find happiness. And then I think about what the positive psychology movement has been telling us, basically that if you try to follow that path, you will achieve happiness about 10% of the time. You have about a 10% chance of getting to happiness that way. Whereas if you reverse the process, you try to get happy first and then successful second, you have a 90% chance of becoming successful after you're happy. And I say to myself, yeah, there are probably guys who have gotten there, but boy, they had to pay a heavy price. And there's still that piece of me that says, okay, well, according to the statistics, then 10% of them actually achieved happiness. And even there, I say to myself, did they really? Really? I mean, the first one coming to my mind right now, Steve Jobs, one of the most successful males in American history, right? He built a company out of nothing, started off with his friend Steve Wozniak, actually alienated most of his friends along the way, ended up getting kicked out of the company that he built, got brought back in as the savior of the company to build the iPod and the iPad and the iPhone, turned the company into this huge success again. Was he really happy? Well, there's a part of me that doubts it, because he died of pancreatic cancer in his 50s.
Yeah.
How happy could he have been?
For sure. I mean, that's so traditional, such a traditional thing of people who have tremendous wealth who aren't necessarily happy.
So, I mean, he achieved the success, and I give him all the credit for achieving that success. But what was the price? That's what I wonder. What was the price?
Well, there's such a big, people it's put on a pedestal in the Western societies. This thing of achieving great external success, and only each individual can measure their internal success, whether they're truly connected to their source self, whether they're truly happy.
And I think about Jobs a lot.
To me is
I got to add to this. I think about Jobs a lot because he did die of pancreatic cancer, And that's significant to me because I have a good friend. She was a dance partner of mine. And after some time, she went off in a different direction, which was fine. She married a friend of mine, and they moved to Florida. And then I got word from her husband, Beach. Beach called me up one day and said, Lori died. I said, what? He said, yeah, she died from from pancreatic cancer. And I could hear he was in a mess. His whole life had just fallen apart because of it.
Wow.
And from what he told me, the agony she went through with that cancer was just off the charts. He said it's the most painful form of cancer you can possibly have. So I'm thinking Steve Jobs was so successful until he suffered and died from the most painful kind of cancer you can have.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm, yeah.
How is that possible?
When you look at what disease is, supposedly it's the final outcome of, or maybe the first outcome, but it's a sort of like the outcome that shows up in your body when you haven't been listening to your emotional guidance system. You know, it's from not listening to what your impulses are telling you, where the direction your joy lies in, and you're pushing against that, or you're just not listening, and eventually it shows up in your body, can't function any longer because you've created a form of resistance in your body by not listening to your joy, by not following your bliss. It ends up as some kind of disease, or you get in an accident or something happens. But you will eventually leave your body by creating so much resistance to your own joy.
Mm. Yeah,
so it's a tricky thing. You know?
It is. It's very tricky, and it does point to the fact that it pays so much more, regardless of what kind of wealth it produces for you. That's really almost secondary. It pays so much more to focus on what feels good, because no matter how that plays out, you're going to certainly end up being able to pay the rent, put the food on the table, and go do the things that you want to do. Will you become the next Steve Jobs? Probably not. But that's all right. And if you are, great. But don't make that the standard, is what I'm thinking. Don't make it that if you don't get the big wealth, then you have failed as a human being. Because that's just setting yourself up for failure. That's just basically saying the only way that I can feel fulfilled is if I've got wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even see how that could work.
It's like if I'm looking to have a life partner, certain friends in my life, a certain place I want to live, a certain amount of money, a certain amount of abundance, all those things, I feel like I have to go for the essence of them rather than have them look a certain way. And when they look a certain way, then I'll decide I'm happy. The happiness has to start right now in this moment that I want to get once I have the perfect house and the perfect partner and the perfect group of friends and the perfect amount of money. It has to begin right now with a feeling inside myself of, well, what does it feel like to be fulfilled? What does it feel like to be satisfied? And if I'm waiting till I have all those other things, all those destinations, and I'm not enjoying the journey to get there, then I'm missing the entire point of being alive. Because the life, whether I end up not even having that much money, or I end up with less friends than I wanted to have, but if I'm essentially happy, if I found my path of least resistance, which is the trajectory that feels the best to me, it's like there's a way that we manifest our very best self, and externally it might not look a certain way, but 9 times out of 10 we can have the things we want. I mean, there's nothing saying we can't have those things.
Right, sure.
But it's like, are we doing it in a way that we're finessing it with a beautiful lifestyle where we're living the life we want to live beginning right now? We're not waiting until we have the certain amount of money in the bank or the certain partner who's living in, sitting in our living room with us, but we're finding joy right now because we're noticing what feels good, what feels good. Am I giving myself the gift of joy today? Am I giving myself the gift of happiness? Am I flowing with who I am? Am I enjoying this life?
And you pointed out the futility of putting off the joy of I will get to the joy. And it occurred to me as soon as you said that, we never actually get to the joy with that path. because what we end up doing is we achieve a certain little amount of success, and then we move the goalpost. And then we go for some more success, and then we move the goalpost. And then we do some more success, and we move the goalpost. We never actually get there. It's like you're trying to get from San Francisco to L.A., but you keep moving L.A., so you never get to L.A.
Right.
It's crazy.
Wow. Yes.
So anyway, we're actually over time. Madness. We're over time, so we should draw to a quick close. But Tom, this has been a great discussion. Thanks for doing it, and I look forward to doing it again with you on Friday.
Thank you, Walt. I do too.
All right.
It's been great.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.